once again, the STI is down for a little while. So after the dyno, we got it home. It made 605 wheel and 638 foot-pounds of torque. We turned it down to 25 or 26 pounds of boost, where we were at a nice 557 wheel and 583 pounds of torque, or 587, somewhere around there. And it ended up starting to push coolant. So at first I was like, all right, I have ARP 625 head studs and a Cooper Athena head gasket. So there's no way it's a bad head gasket, right? So drained all my coolant, completely flushed it, and did a vacuum bleed on it. And it worked for a while, and I just didn't really get into boost a ton. And the other day, I decided to go out on the interstate and do 4 or 5 second through fourth pulls just to make sure everything was super dialed. And my coolant overflow tank, which if you know anything about Subarus, when you have a bad head gasket, the most common problem is under boost. You'll get coolant pushing into this overflow tank. And so every time I would do a pull, this would fill up a little bit. My buddy ended up going and buying a combustion leak tester tool. Here's what the leak detector kit consists of. It's blue test fluid and this little apparatus here. So basically, put that in your radiator, hold it there, and you use this at the top of it, and you just squeeze, and it basically pulls the air up through your coolant system up into the tube. And if this test fluid turns green or yellow, you have a bad head gasket. And so we went ahead and did that test, and we did it 4 times in a row. Every single time it turned green. So the only safe assumption is that it's a bad head gasket. So this motor is under warranty by M45 Automotive in Auburn, California. And it was built by them under, I want to say right around 3,000 miles ago. And the warranty is good for 2 years or 24 months. It's only been probably 4 or 5 months max. So I guess what's next for this car is I'm going to have to pull the motor again. I thought about just doing the head gaskets myself. I've done them before on previous long blocks. But with the warranty that this has, I might as well just send it out and have it done by a professional shop. I'm kind of annoyed that it even happened because Athenas and 625 should be able to handle this amount of power. So I don't know if it was just a ton of cylinder pressure caused by super aggressive timing in the low end, because I remember we were hitting that peak torque number pretty low in the RPM range. So that could definitely play a factor in it. But I'm really just over it at this point, dude. Like, I've gone through, this is now my second built motor. There were just a ton of various issues with the last motor. And now I have this completely brand new, completely built long block. So let me just kind of do a rundown of the build. So they're custom Manley 100 millimeter pistons, H-Tough rods, a brand new STI crankshaft, ACL rod and main bearings, Brian Crower springs and retainers in the head, stock cams, and upgraded Manley valves, which are just the stock size. And then I have a custom dual catch can setup, which I'm changing to a competition AOS soon. It's an FP green with the stock inlet, 8 centimeter outlet, Grimspeed boost controller, 3-inch intercooler. It's a Turbo XS intercooler with ETS piping. I just have a block off plate for the blow off valve. I know it's a little bit more stressful on the turbo, but it's really only like a 4% decrease in turbo life, so I really don't care. Completely custom fuel lines, still stock manifold, but you really don't need to upgrade your manifold until you're above like 600-700. What else? Catless downpipe, HKS headers, up pipe with a 38 millimeter tile wastegate, and then fully custom fuel lines with 1440cc injectors and a hardwired fuel pump. It's an AM 340 just in the tank. And yeah, it's it's an awesome, super fun build, super streetable, perfect power, in my opinion, for these cars, right at that 500 wheel mark. Probably going to turn it down once the head gaskets are done just to keep it somewhat reliable. And even at 500 wheel, this thing fucking scoots. Like, it's fast. But yeah, it just kind of pisses me off that so many other people, and I know I can't compare this car to other cars. Every car is different, whatever. But I genuinely feel like this car is cursed because other people have no issues running these setups. especially with 625s and Athena head gaskets. Like, I'm seriously even considering going up to 13 or 14 millimeter head studs now, because for whatever reason, it just can't handle the torque that this turbo makes. And it pushes coolant only at max power. So, I mean, I'd rather just fix the issue than sit here and turn the boost down and just Band-Aid fix the problem. I know people try and do different turbo tank caps. They'll put the STI 1.3 bar cap there. You got to leave your radiator one, the stock one, but it's kind of just Band-Aid fixes in my opinion. And now the other problem is I'm pretty sure my timing tensioner is going bad. It's making an extremely loud, noisy knocking sound, and that partially could be because this bottom bolt on the timing cover is stripped out, so it's kind of like wobbly down here. But this is completely bolted up. The center one and this passenger one is completely bolted up, and it should not be that loud underneath the timing cover. I thought it was maybe just the cover slapping for a while, but it's definitely a tensioner issue. So when I go back through, this belt only has like 3,000 miles on it or something like that. So I'm going to keep the same belt, but I'll probably get a new tensioner. Might as well do a new oil pump while I'm in there just to be safe. The pump has like 25,000 miles on it, but you never know. Why wouldn't it fail at this point? Everything else has failed multiple times. So basically what I'm trying to say in this video is don't heavily modify your daily driver car unless you have another car to drive in case something goes wrong. Because in my case, I would be building it and finally get it done. And since I needed a car to drive so desperately, I would just drive it. Even though it wasn't completely tuned yet, completely dialed in, I would just still drive it. And I would stay out of boost and I would drive it easily. And then finally, when we would start doing data logs and street logs and stuff for tuning, one time I had my wastegate hooked up wrong. So I hit like 30 pounds of boost, not on this motor, on the last motor. I hit like 36 PSI on ARP 2000. Somehow they didn't lift. This has already lifted heads at 32 PSI. That's why it's pushing coolant. So these cars, they're just problematic, and I want you guys to know that. So even when this thing's running perfectly, like, there's still always in the back of my mind, like, oh, it's gonna break eventually. You can't expect built cars to last forever, but these head gaskets should have lasted a lot longer than they did. This car only made like 31 to 32 pounds on the dyno of boost. It's an FP Green. It's not that big of a turbo. And of course, obviously 14 millimeter head studs, 1/2 inch head studs, that's the way to go if you want to go above like 600 wheel. But at least my understanding was that 625s would be good to about 600 to 700 wheel. And IAG even got them up to close to 750 wheel. And I've even heard of people getting them to 900 wheel, but it all depends on cylinder pressure. And obviously this turbo is just so torquey that it caused so much cylinder pressure in the low end and low RPM range that the head lifts, and then it probably comes right back down as you get into the higher RPM range. But since there's so much power in the mid-range, it's just causing all that pressure buildup. Another thing I haven't addressed in any YouTube videos, here's our shop. That's my buddy Alex's FZ6R. Better go check out the big bore moped. Haven't made a video on this thing yet. I believe it was 49 cc's stock, and now it's like 80 some cc's. It's completely out of gas right now, or I'd start it up, but this thing sounds insane. It's such a beast. But yeah, anyway, here's our shop. Got all the tint supplies up there, all the detailing supplies here. Got a shop vac, pressure washer, carpet shampooer, steam cleaner, everything you'd ever need to detail a car here. All of our wax, ceramic coatings, everything like that. We painted all the OSB in here because it was all just styrofoam up in this corner, and then kind of just looked like shit. These were some old ass cabinets that the guy who had previously rented this out had built and put up in here. So he left the cabinets. We put up this nice countertop we got at Menards, and we painted all the cabinets completely. We had this entire thing pulled off the wall. Got a nice TV up there. Ramps, of course, for oil changes. Pretty good setup. It's kind of small. Our air compressor, of course. This thing's a piece of shit. We need to call DeWalt because they bought it from Runnings, my two buddies. Had like a 60-day warranty, and they went in on like the 65th day because it wasn't working correctly. It overheats. We even took the filters off of it for a while. He taped the filters back up, but they have these little covers here and have little hoses at the bottom that suck in air. So restrictive, but this whole motor will just overheat after a while. It'll completely fill up the tank, it'll shut itself off, and then we'll start using it for details and stuff to blow out cars. And when you go to turn it back on, it just won't turn on. It's like in safe mode, and then it'll randomly just start working again. So we got to get that figured out. I also need to put my STI badge back on. Top part of it just randomly peeled off. This thing's honestly not worth all the money I've put into it, but here we are. So I think that's gonna wrap up today's video. If anyone sees this video and needs a good detail or tint job at a great price, let us know. You will not be disappointed. And I think that's gonna wrap it up. So see you guys later. Next video will probably be me yanking this thing out and the tear down to send it off to the machine shop.